Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Cal Poly Manifest 2022 virtual gallery tour. This year, the Manifest Gallery is a collaboration between Men and Masculinities and the Disability Resource Center, and the theme is storytelling, the intersections of masculinity and disability. I'm going to be walking you through the gallery in this Zoom. The way that we're going to do this is I will display the piece together with information on the artist and the title of the piece. And while that is on the screen, I will read out the image description for you. After that, I will display the artist statement and read it out loud. And once we've read the artist statement, I will go back to the picture of the image, and that will hold there for about 5 seconds so that you all can pause if you would like to view the image for longer. That being said, let's jump right in. The next piece in the gallery is called Bleeding Bones. It's Not That Bad, and it's by Regina Hawker, who uses they, she pronouns. The image background is a page out of an architecture textbook filled with text. Marker written at the top of the page reads, "It's not that bad." Red marker at the bottom of the page reads, "Suck it up." On the lower left side, there is a kneeling skeleton with praying hands drawn in black pen. On the right side of the page, there is a black pen drawing of a skull with red marker in the hollows of the skull, dripping blood down the page. The artist statement for this piece reads, "This piece was created to display the unseen impact of disability, specifically my chronic pain, and to explore how misrepresentations of masculinity have interacted with my disability. My relationship with masculinity is complicated and nearly impossible for me to articulate, thus why this visual art portrays a minuscule portion of it. Growing up, the definitions of masculinity I received, both explicit and implied, revolved around silent suffering, strength in ignoring pain, never admitting defeat. These gross misrepresentations of masculinity, combined with negative stereotypes of femininity and my constant struggle to distance myself from femininity. Where I spent my entire adolescence in the Midwest, femininity was directly equated with weakness, incompetence, and vulnerability. To be taken seriously, to have a future, to be respected, I had to be masculine. And of course, I never could do it quite right. I was terrified of being told I was acting like a girl or having any qualities related to typical femininity. As my progressive chronic illness and chronic pain got worse throughout high school, these twisted views of masculinity and opposing femininity kept suppressing my reactions and my ability to get help. The words "suck it up" still echo in my head every time my bones ache and send stabbing, shooting pains through my skeleton. They ring in my ears when my skin burns, when my blood pressure drops and I collapse to the floor. I must not be trying hard enough. I must be overreacting. It's not that bad. I continue to fall short of the expectations of strength, while my nerves send pure electricity pulsing through my body. This piece represents a window into that dark point of time in my life and my incorrect emotional ties to masculinity and the messages I receive from the world outside me. Chronic pain, disability in general, has a way of forcing you to evaluate your ideas of strength, ability, and competence. Through this, I was also forced to take a closer look at what masculinity and femininity mean to me. I identify with both masculinity and femininity, which is something I can finally say proudly after years of struggling with other perceptions of them both. I no longer fear femininity, but instead embrace all aspects of it, including the softness, the beautiful vulnerability. I no longer praise the brutal parts of masculinity, but instead appreciate its nuance, its strength and its tenderness, its care. I can be disabled and masculine, and can embrace both masculinity and femininity without them discrediting the other. I still do not know exactly what masculinity means to me. It evolves each day as I continue to work on being kind to myself and push back against the faulty perceptions ingrained in me. My disability and my masculinity are not at odds with each other. They are both vital parts of the world around me. Both are vital parts of me. And here is the artwork again. The next piece is called Fog by M.W. Kaplan, who uses they, them, theirs pronouns. The image is acrylic on reclaimed paper. The central figure is the silhouette of a human person. Drawn inside is a human skeleton, anatomically correct but not scaled or fully detailed. The right side is a light pink silhouette with blue bones. The left side is a light blue with a light pink skeleton. There are no bones in the head, and the legs stop before the ankles, interrupted by text. Above the head, there is green lettering on a muted purple background. Below the figure, there is purple lettering on a muted green background. Both sets of text have white highlighting on the top left of the letters. In the middle between the person is white, painted to look slightly like fog. Altogether, the colors make up the genderqueer pride flag, and the contrasting text reads, "Look beyond what you see." The artist statement for this piece is, "You can't know my identities just from looking at me. I don't usually fit the expectations for and stereotypes of someone who is disabled or trans. Many will think they'd know if they saw or met a trans or disabled person, yet they don't see me." And here's the image again. Next piece is SCIX, SCHIII, again by M.W. Kaplan, uses they, them, theirs pronouns. And the image is acrylic on reclaimed paper. The top left quarter of the paper contains a person's abdomen, which is painted yellow with muted orange shadows and outlined in black Sharpie. The bottom left of the abdomen has a horizontal line that is bold and black. On the right of the abdomen, there is an outlined impression of a hand with white highlighting. It is pinching some of the abdomen, about an inch from the belly button, between thumb and forefinger, and that skin has a red X on it. Below the abdomen is a line drawing of a syringe in black Sharpie. The cap is on the needle, but there are 3 blue-white droplets drawn around the top. To the right of it is a dark blue medicine vial with blue-white highlighting. To the right of it, SCHIII is written in black Sharpie, the abbreviation for a Schedule III controlled substance. SCIX is written vertically on the far right of the page, about 1/3 of the way down, which is an older abbreviation for a subcutaneous injection. Surrounding each of the drawings are cubic paint smears in shades of blue, yellow, and red. The artist statement for this piece reads, "The same medication that masculinizes my appearance also treats my chronic pain. Testosterone cyponiate is a naturally occurring steroid that reduces immune action and inflammation. It's prescribed for low testosterone, including for gender affirmation. Being transmasculine and chronically ill/disabled are intrinsically connected for me." And again, here is the image. The next piece is called Erroneous by Josiah Smith, who uses they, them pronouns. The image is dark blue and has a light blue tie-dye background. There are scantrons and code chunks on the next background level of the painting. These are on blue and white sheets of paper. Glue is in abstract shapes covering sections of the code and background. These are colored pink. There is an orange and pink painted man in the middle of the piece covered in glue as well. Then on the top layer of the piece, there is a pink and blue papier-mâché face that overlaps both the man and the scantron. The word erroneous is spelled 3RR0N30U5 in felt, pairing with a papier-mâché on the top level. The artist statement for this piece reads, "Perceptions of people are erroneous. By looking at the surface of someone, you can't even begin to see the layers of what makes them. Sometimes you are able to make bits and pieces into an understanding, but this visual is still one perception of them. The perception doesn't show the hardships, the growth, or the life that made that person." And here's the image again. The next piece is called Men by Jesse Vestermark, who uses he, him pronouns. The image is a digital rendering of a standard blue men's room sign, except the man icon has no arms. The artist statement for this piece reads, "I am an able-bodied man, but a severe disability within my family reverberates through my life, having profoundly affected my psychological nature, familial nurture, and sense of masculinity 2 generations later. A little over a century ago, when he was 7 years old, my paternal grandfather fell out of a tree he had been climbing, shattering his arms and a leg in the fall. In the operating room, his soon-to-be absentee father told the doctor, within earshot, 'Just let him die.' The doctor saved his leg, but his arms needed to be amputated above the elbows. There were no prosthetics for this type of injury, and most of his life was lived before the Americans with Disabilities Act. Though his family was dirt poor and he was one of 7 children raised by an eventually single mother, he became a lawyer, had 4 kids, and was married for over 50 years until he died in his 80s. As a child, I asked him to show me how he wrote with a pen in his mouth. I also remember clasping his pants pocket when crossing busy streets. Otherwise, I spent very little time with him growing up, as he lived in California and we lived in Minnesota. How would he have carried his law books or opened doors? I don't know. While my grandpa obviously had to learn patience, adaptability, and courage, I don't think he was really allowed to have or share feelings about his trauma, though I know his adult self blamed his child self for the accident. The idea of psychological therapy was new and would be stigmatized for decades, so that was likely never even considered an option. While on the surface, his story sounds like an American bootstrap success in the extreme, there was an unexplored emotional aspect and cost to his experience that was passed on to my father and me. My dad, as the oldest child of four, was essentially made the third parent in the family, and he, like my grandpa, had to repress his feelings about his upbringing. He coped in part through compulsive behavior, intense caretaking, which is not a stereotypical masculine role, and making high demands of his loved ones. Most of my dad's few stories about my grandpa's disability revolved around bathrooming. It only takes a second to imagine why. I'll leave you with one story about this that is very simple and very haunting and inspired this artwork. Grandpa lived in Long Beach and would sometimes have to appear in court in downtown Los Angeles. He would have to take the bus there and back, a 12-hour day altogether, without using the bathroom once. Here's the image again. The next piece is called Snickerdoodle by Owen Works, who did not provide pronouns. The image is a graffiti-style work centering around the word snickerdoodle, which is broken in half and takes up 2 lines. The predominant colors in the image are neon green, yellow, pink, and blue, with black detailing. Many small doodles, words, and phrases are scribbled all over the piece. The doodles include flowers, peace signs, triangles, eyes, yin-yang symbols, hearts, and more. Notable words and phrases include "we believe you," gratitude, faith, pride, imagine, me, loyalty, visualize, support others, awareness, grit, vulnerability, planning, and more. The artist statement for this piece reads, "This piece, Snickerdoodle, was made as a gift for a friend. It started with him asking for the words that would form the base of the graffiti. The word Snickerdoodle is written in large letters across 2 lines. From there, I really wanted the piece to have a lot of meaning tied to it, as it was a special gift. I poured emotions, thoughts, lessons, and words onto the paper, using different colored pencils, markers, Sharpies, and watercolor paint. I wrote words that were meaningful to me and encouragement that I hoped would help this friend in facing his own demons. The displayed piece is a photocopy. I gave the original piece to this friend and didn't have a physical copy until I made one about 7 months later. This friend I met when I was in the hospital. We had lived very different lives, but I still felt a strong connection to him and very empathetic towards his situation. I wanted to make him something he could appreciate for the art it was, but also look to for reminders and even inspiration. While creating this piece, I didn't worry too much about messing it up. I just let the creativity flow freely. There are numerous smaller illustrations and sections amongst the whole picture. My favorite is Surfer Dan on his board, paddling and reaching out for a heart. And here is the image again.
The next piece in the gallery is titled Rorschach, and it was submitted anonymously.
The image is a large, wide rectangle with rounded corners. The piece is bordered by a thin, solid red line. It is filled in with large white and black shapes in abstract, ink blot-inspired patterns that somewhat resemble elements of nature, such as leaves.
The artist's statement
For this piece says that this piece is inspired by Rorschach ink blot tests. Originally, these drawings were a psychological test where a subject gazes upon abstract images and determines what they see. To me, this is what masculinity is about. You define it for yourself. It is not certain characteristics or values which make something masculine. It is the idea of being exactly what you are. In that notion of being true and unrestrained, you are masculine. Gaze unto the piece. What do you see? The final piece in this gallery is Untitled. It was submitted anonymously, and there was no artist statement provided. The image description is that this is a work done in crayon, acrylic paint, hot glue, and thread. The edges of the piece are black crayon, and more colors of crayon are layered inwards, creating a somewhat circular shape filled in with many colors that blend together into a dark background, with visible streaks of purple, red, mustard yellow, and teal blue mixed in. Over this, white acrylic paint is painted in thin, wobbly, curly lines, creating a smaller round shape over the background in the center of the piece. Bright pink acrylic paint creates 2 pointed ears and a cat face on the round white shape. The face looks like the letters OWO. All around the edge of the piece, dark green thread is loosely stitched or glued down. There are also strings of hot glue mixed into the piece. Some of them have been painted white, and some have been left clear. This is the final piece in the gallery. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the artwork.